Tim, we interrupted some grandpa duty there, man. How about that?
I'm all good now.
Hey, it's great to hear from you, man. We haven't been in close contact since we came down, and rumor has it from the country club down there, you haven't lost all the balls we brought to you yet either. So I guess that's a good sign.
Yeah, my Callaways are in great shape, and you brought me some. You knew my brand, which was really nice of you. I appreciate that.
Hey, we love it. We appreciated the time we got to spend with you. But now here we are. We are in the middle of college football season. It's happening, and I got to start here with the game you just called, TCU and Kansas State. You were just in Fort Worth. Man, talk to us about Kansas State. They lose their quarterback, Skylar Thompson, for the year. The Big 12, aside from Oklahoma State, doesn't really appear to have a playoff potential team right now, but Kansas State looks about as sure as they come under Chris Kleiman right now.
I don't think any team that's lost a game, and I know Kansas State lost one, and they lost to a group of 5 team in Arkansas State, but they had a lot of players with COVID that week. To be perfectly honest with you, Clint, I think they're capable of running the table. I look at a lot of these teams that have one loss right now. Look at Oklahoma's schedule, by the way, and I know they've dropped 2, but if you look at their schedule, don't you think there's a chance they could win every game they've got left? I mean,
Iowa State too.
One of those. Yeah. It's one of those years. Iowa State falls in the same category. The Iowa State-Oklahoma State game, which is on the 24th, I'm still waiting to find out if that's going to be my game. It could be. I might be in the Big Ten, or I might be at that game. I just don't know right now. May find out later today, or certainly by tomorrow. We have no Big 12 games next week, with the exception of Kansas and West Virginia, the only other one. I know Sean McDonough was about to do, and then they called that off because of COVID concerns at Baylor, I think. So,
yeah,
you've only got one game in the league next week, and Gus and Joel are going to do that one. So, but on the 24th, our backloaded schedule during the COVID era on Fox begins in earnest. We'll have a ton of Big Ten games and Big 12 games. And then, of course, in early November, the Pac-12 and the Mountain West get started. So, I'm trying to enjoy these games I can drive to in the Big 12 from the Chateau, with the understanding that pretty soon, when we get into the dead of winter, I'll be working all the way through Christmas week, doing college football with everything moved back. But look, all of these teams, Kansas State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, are teams that could potentially win every game they've got left or drop half of them. I mean, it's just an incredibly balanced year. And as I mentioned in this week's On Brando, that I know you guys like to take a look at.
Sure.
You can find out late on Friday. These coaches just don't know. We're doing Zooms with these coaches, usually the away team on Wednesday or Thursday, the home team late in the day on Friday. With the rapid testing that these guys are getting, and it's 3 times a week, they may think they have everyone ready to go with their game plan. And then on Friday night, they find out, 3 or 4 guys can't suit up. And that's for everybody in college football this year. So it's so much more of a mixed bag is my point. And as it relates to that, some of these teams that you think really have it together can suddenly lose it just like that, and vice versa. Okay. So we're going to see, I think, even more shocking upsets than what we've seen. And I would submit to you that last week there were plenty and should have been more. I mean, Arkansas got hosed. That should have been an upset. So there's so much more out there that can happen that will astound people because of the nature of the COVID era that we're trying to play in.
Absolutely. And Tim, I know a big topic, we talked about it all off season, was Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin coming to the SEC, Mississippi State and Ole Miss. Mike Leach, we thought it was a shock in the nation that they beat LSU. Were the SEC going to be able to figure out this Mississippi State offense and the Matt Professor and Mike Leach? And then they dropped the next 2 games and only score 16 points in those 2 games. Lane Kiffin gave Alabama all they wanted. They fell short, leaving Saban to say he must have known the calls. They cheated. There's something going on here. So just what are the early returns here on Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin in the SEC?
Well, who would have thought when we last spoke, when you guys came to see me in the middle of the summer, that with both of those guys hired, that each of them would be really looking up to the Q rating of the head coach at Jackson State. Think about that. I mean, I'm sorry, Deion's got more Twitter followers than the Lane Train and the Mad Scientist put together. You know,
Absolutely.
It's bizarre. It's just wild what's going on in Mississippi. But I think that Kiffin, has to have been sent to, he sent a message big time about his abilities and with the offense that he's got, even with the loss to Alabama. And, I looked it up. This is how bad Ole Miss's defense was. Okay, just think about this. Just like in a baseball game, a pitcher gets the maximum or the minimum of 27 if he pitches a perfect game. If he pitches a no-no and a perfect game, that means he faced the minimum. All right, well, in college football, you think about what would be the maximum number of yards that you could gain in a single game to say that you played almost a perfect game offensively. Going back to where Alabama received the ball, either on kickoffs, I don't think there were any. If there was a punt, there might have been one. If you go back and look at it, Alabama did turn it over once at the 1-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a couple of other occasions where they gave the ball up. But anyway, of the total yards they could have gained based on where they got the ball, okay, Alabama left 41 yards that they could have gained that they didn't in the game. They gained every other yard that they could possibly gain from the time they had the ball, but 41 yards.
Wow.
Now, we say that, and they could have lost the game.
Yeah.
I mean, an onside kick, and if Ole Miss gets it, the Lane Train's going in with a chance to win the game. So that's how bad Alabama's defense was, but they weren't anywhere nearly as bad as Ole Miss's, defense. So, it's just that's an amazing stat to me. But the reality is Ole Miss will be able to recruit to this offense big time. And defensively, if you're a junior college kid going to any one of those incredible number of junior colleges that they have in Mississippi, and every town's got one, trust me, you're going to start on defense if you go to Ole Miss,
Yeah.
immediately. So they're going to get well pretty soon, I think, and be very competitive with the offense being what it is. Leach is, as he was at Washington State, to some extent at Texas Tech, a little bit of a mixed bag. Barry Odom came over from Missouri and out what Bo Pelini should have done and didn't do. He probably looked at the tape of the Washington State series and understood, what Jimmy Lake, the defensive coordinator, did to stop the air raid, and they did. They absolutely stopped it and turned it around. To go along with what Arkansas was able to pull off, and then follow that up with Arkansas's defense that Barry designed, followed by an excellent defensive head coach in Mark Stoops. I'm not surprised that this happened, but trust me when I tell you, there will be teams that Mississippi State, hangs 50 or more on still on their schedule. So they're going to win their fair share of games. It's good for the SEC that they've got them, but what you're seeing in the SEC as a result of the influx of guys like Leach and Kiffin are teams that historically we thought of defense first, LSU and especially Alabama. But LSU, that secondary from Missouri, and Drinkwich, by the way, unbelievable job what that guy did at Missouri. For him to have made that team as competitive as he has, Al deserves a lot of credit. All right, but that LSU secondary looked like what Hank Stram called in Super Bowl 4 when he was mic'd up, and Hey, look at Kasulki out there. It's like he's running around grabbing air. Look, they look like a Chinese fire drill out there. I mean, that's what LSU's second. They couldn't get lined up. They didn't know where to go. So LSU's defense that was once highly thought of, very highly thought of, is now a skeleton of its former self. Alabama's. I mean, was there any better defense in the modern era of college football than Alabama's? And look how bad they look. I mean, other than Georgia, who in the SEC can say, yeah, man, our defense is stout? I mean, nobody. So you can, and I think a lot of people in the Big 12, especially some coaches, are laughing about this because there were a lot of arrogant SEC pundits and a lot of arrogant SEC fans that were saying they play no defense in the Big 12. Well, now you got a few of our coaches. What are you going to do about that, SEC? I mean, that's what's happening. You know what I mean? Leach comes into the league. Kiffin, who really Saban should have. This notion that he, signals, that's just Nick being Nick. He never wants to give credit to the opposition because he deems that as weakness and an excuse for his players to have. And he manipulates the media, okay, for his players' sake. So if he doesn't say the opponents were if he doesn't say they were cheating, in his mind, he can't go after his players. He wants to be able to go after his players and motivate them. So if he lays it all at the foot of them, the blame at their feet, and doesn't give credit to the opposition, then he feels like he's got a mental edge. I mean, that's what that's all about. And Kiffin knows that, and that's why he called him out the way he did today. I thought it was pretty funny. I really did.
Well, Tim, one thing I'm noticing across the country when I see these games is such a disparity in attendance. I look at Texas A&M and it looked like Woodstock 1969, and I look at Missouri LSU and it looked like, it's 10 feet between the next human being. In the stadiums you've been in and what you've seen, there's just so much disparity around there. What have you seen in these crowds when you've been on the road or watched these games? It just seems like a huge disparity, which probably speaks to local municipalities and local government. I mean, I guess that's kind of what dictates this. Dan Mullen wants 90,000 for the LSU game on Saturday.
College Station seats over 100,000. So they've got 25% capacity. And look, the 12th man is the 12th man, whether they're 70,000 short or not, but they make noise there. That's a vociferous group. The same would be true at the Texas OU game in Dallas. Now, they definitely had to adhere at the Cotton Bowl to the health standards in that county. There's no doubt about that. But what was really funny was watching how those people in the lower deck that were spaced out as the game went into overtime started shifting from one to the other side of the field to make noise. I mean, this is a rivalry game. Human beings are going to do what human beings at football games do, and that is follow their team and yell and scream at the opposing team. I mean, this isn't just a game. This is a religion. We got to get down there. So you're going to hear more from them. I had the Texas Tech wild one in Lubbock that went to overtime that somehow Sam Ehlinger was able to pull off. And you know how much Texas Tech hates Texas. I mean, that crowd was into it. Pretty amazing that the Red Raiders found a way to lose that game, but they did. At Kansas, on the very day that Kansas State was losing to Arkansas State with, I want to say, about 20,000 people at Snyder Family Stadium, the University of Kansas University decided not to have anybody at the game.
Yeah, Coastal Carolina game. That's right.
Yeah, we're walking down for the Coastal Carolina game, Spencer and I, and I'm thinking, why don't they allow these kids to come to the game? I mean, even when there wasn't an international pandemic, there was social distancing at Memorial Stadium in Lawrence.
Sure.
I mean, really. And we're walking down from the Oriad, which sits on top of a hill, going straight down. That's the hotel on the campus at KU. And we're passing by fraternity houses and sorority houses that are packed full of kids. You could smell the Patron down where we were walking. Okay. So they should have allowed those kids to go to the game. I guarantee you they would have been safer at the game than they were, in their tank tops and in the sorority houses. You're right. There is a difference depending on the game, the passion or lack thereof for football at said university. I don't think there's any question about that. But here's what's the bottom line to me, guys. And I know we've lost some games, and a lot of them have been in the Big 12, but they tried to start sooner than everybody else. They started on September the 5th. They built in these potential hiccups and rescheduling of games. But you know what's happening, guys? We're playing football, aren't we? We're now through week 6. And for all those people that said, there's just absolutely no way. It can't happen. It won't happen. Well, guess what? It did happen. And you can say, well, they're only doing it for the money, and you'd be right. But they're also doing it, I think, because they got to live. You got to get through this thing, and you got to find some happiness. And I think college football has provided quite a bit of happiness these last 6 weeks, not just to the people playing the game, but to the young people that are trying to enjoy their college life, that maybe can't go to class, but do work in their apartments and in their dormitories, if they can be in dormitories, on Zoom classes. But at least they've got something to go to, even if it's on a lottery basis. And even if they aren't, they can say, well, I'm outside the stadium and I'm able to watch my team play, and that just brings a little level of normalcy to the world. And God knows we need it right now. No question. I love it when people are hammering me on Twitter, because at least they're hammering me about a game, okay, as opposed to the crap that we have to be put in front of as it relates to our country every day. So to those that said it would never happen, couldn't happen, and I was telling you that it would, it wasn't because I didn't care for human life. It was because I thought college football couldn't afford not to play, and that we would be better off were we to play. And I think both are true.
Yeah, it's very well said, Tim. And I got to ask you about a game coming up this weekend. We assume at least there's no guarantees in this world today, but Alabama versus Georgia, 2 versus 3 this weekend. I'm not sure we know what we truly have in either team yet, but we should learn where they both really stand after this game. What are your thoughts going to be, and what are you looking for in this matchup?
Alabama's defense will look a lot better because Georgia's offense is not nearly as dynamic as Ole Miss's. Bennett has proven himself to be a really good manager of his team, which might actually be for this Georgia team what they need, given the fact that their defense is so dominant. Georgia's defense is better than Alabama's. It's not often we ever say that, but it is. However, I think Alabama, coming off this performance, and by the way, that's what a lot of this back and forth with Saban and Kiffin, that's what a lot of this is about. Nick and his defensive coordinator are taking a lot of heat, and you can imagine what practices are going to be like before this game being played in Tuscaloosa. I do think that Georgia is the better team right now. And I don't think that it's going to be the one and only time they play. I think there's a very good chance that they'll play again for the SEC championship. So, if you happen to lose the game, it doesn't mean it's over. Florida certainly helped Georgia by losing the game to A&M. Mm-hmm. And because, as we said about the COVID era we're in, I think that Alabama could lose twice. I mean, I really do. Even if they were to beat Georgia, I still think the chance is there for Alabama. If any one of these teams loses 2 or 3 critical guys on either side of the ball, I mean, it makes a world of difference. I'm not ready to tell you who will win this week, but I am ready to tell you that both Georgia and Alabama, regardless of who wins, will lose eventually. And in fact, I'll just tell you this. I think that the champion of the Southeastern Conference and the champion of the Big 12 Conference, the champion of the Big 10 Conference, those 3, okay, not all 5, but those 3 are going to have champions with 2 losses.
Wow.
So Georgia and Alabama, something's got to give. That'll give one of them a loss. But I just don't think by example, I think Florida matches up better against Georgia than Alabama does. All right, I would give Florida a better chance to beat Georgia than Alabama a chance to beat Georgia. Okay, and Florida's already dropped the game to A&M. And by the way, what's going to happen with A&M? You're saying? Well, they could be capturing lightning in a bottle right now. Yeah, I know they got boat raced in Tuscaloosa, and that's happened many times before to them. But Kellen Mond might be a different guy. That might have been exactly the game he needed to begin to take off. And I don't believe that LSU's problems on defense are going to remain this bad for the entire season. You know, speaking of critical games, what if Florida were to drop a game to LSU after losing the way they did last week? Talk about the wheels coming off, and they could. I mean, that could happen. So it's crazy go nuts time in the SEC. Really is.
Well, it sure is, and I think that's what's kind of made it fun. And circling back, you mentioned briefly Missouri's win over LSU, and we got to bring that up. Here in Missouri, as we are. Bo Pelini's defense obviously a struggle. There's no question about that. He comes in here, and LSU's missing players all over the field. They lost 17 starters from last year's team. We know what happened to LSU, but for Missouri and for the 4 new coaches in the SEC through 3 weeks, they all have a signature win. They're selling hope to their fan base. That's really important, isn't it? Especially at a place like Missouri that's had to start over, and really it started at the bottom of the barrel. This was a big one for Missouri, wasn't it?
Oh, my God. I mean, if I were voting for – it's way too early, but if we were voting for SEC Coach of the Year, I think we're going Arkansas and Missouri, aren't we?
Right we now? Might. Lane Kiffin, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, right now, I thought Arkansas was. I looked at the schedule when it came out for them, and I was like, that's 0-10. That's what I thought. I literally thought that, and Missouri not much better actually. Ole Miss, because of Lane and because of the players he got, particularly Corral, a combination of Corral and Plumlee, I thought, he's going to win a few games here. Now, I didn't expect it to necessarily be at Kentucky, but they're going to win some games. They can outscore people. They'll get a few more. They absolutely will get a few more. But I think it's great for the league that these new coaches are doing well, because I don't think, even with the problems the conference is having with its defenses being torched the way they are, I don't think it's a sign that suddenly they forgot how to play defense, or that these recruits aren't what they were ballyhooed to be. I just think it's the bottom line of the college football world being flatter than people think. And regardless of what the image or stereotype of a team might be, during the COVID era, we're talking about balancing things out. Okay. When you lose 5 or 6 guys a week based on COVID concerns, and if they happen to be at the wrong spot on your depth chart, you can really pay a dear price for that. That's a lot of it too. So, I'm trying to tell fans to understand that these are not typical conditions, and that, I used to pick games. I called it my Saturday 6-pack.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it this year. I'm not doing it. There's no way. Anybody that wants to bet on games during the COVID era, oh my God, you need to be fitted for a straitjacket and a rubber cell, because, look what happened with Kansas State at Oklahoma. They were down 7 guys, 5 of them on defense, and they beat Oklahoma. Hello? Come on. That's nuts. But that's the world that we're living in right now, and I think it's very unpredictable. I do on a couple of shows when I really have conviction, make a pick, and I did last week in Jacksonville, Florida. I know I angered a lot of Florida fans, but I liked A&M in that game against Florida. And the reason I did is because it's about desperation. They had been beaten badly by Alabama. Jimbo had been taking a lot of heat, and he's not had really a signature win since taking over. And this is a Florida team that has been told all week long, they're the best team in the conference. They're really better than Georgia. Georgia's offense is awful. And what are they, and yeah, their offense was still good, scored a lot of points, got a lot of yards, but their defense was vulnerable and they were torched big. Dynamic, explosive playmaking can beat that defense. And, so the defensive coordinators, whether it's Grantham at Florida or Pelini at LSU, these guys are becoming big-time scapegoats for coaches who know if they don't get it fixed quick, they're going to be the ones in the frying pan as opposed to their defensive coordinators being thrown under the proverbial bus.
Yeah, everybody wanted to talk COVID era. We're going to put an asterisk by this. We're going to let these coaches coach. It didn't take long to start seeing the same old stuff come raining down, and that's kind of that's a good thing though. Like you said, hey, we're talking about games and we're putting this stuff under a microscope, and that's a lot better than the alternative. Tim, am I to understand you don't have a game this week? Is that the case? No game this week for you?
Right.
Yep. So we'll see you back October 24th.
October the 24th,
yes.
And as we speak, I will speculate for you that I think I've got a good handle on it. If I'm in the Big 12, it'll be the second game on Fox, which is Ohio State, Nebraska in the big noon window that weekend, and the second game is Iowa State at Oklahoma State. I mean, that's a very big game in the Big 12. And I'm still, listen, I was getting absolutely torched after week one. I had Iowa State in my top 10, my preseason top 10. I think I had them number 6 in the country, I think. And people are like, what? Are you out of your mind? They lose at home to Louisiana Lafayette. And look at what they've done since, And I like them. I think Matt Campbell's defense, gun to my head right now, and I know you don't have one there, but gun to my head right now.
Never.
The team I believe is the best team in the league right now is Iowa State. I think they offensively and defensively have a great combination as they get their running game going, and Reese is really coming around in that position to go along with Purdy and his receivers. Purdy had his one bad game, got it out of the way early, and I think that they're in good shape right now. Oklahoma State, as they get their quarterback healthy to go along with the great backs, you can make a case that LD Brown is running it better than Chuba Hubbard right now.
Yes.
And the defense is really just playing lights out. So that's going to be a fun game. And if we don't do that game and they send us out to the Big Ten, then there's I think there's a 2:30 game, or it would probably be a game that would be on opposite the Fox game in the Big 12, which is Penn State at a much improved Indiana. That's the second Big Ten game that the Fox family of networks will have that weekend. So I think Spencer and I will either have the Iowa State, Oklahoma State game or the Penn State, Indiana game.
Well, no matter what, Tim, we'll be watching. We love everything you do. We can't thank you enough for hopping on with us. We love doing this with you. Thanks so much, and take care. Enjoy your week off. Get some games in. Play some golf. Watch some games, and we'll see you on October 24th.
There'll be some golf play.
Well, that's just what I hear. I know what it's like down there. I've seen the course now. That's our next goal. We're going to come down and play around with you, and then we'll really see
that's
what we're made of.
Oh, that's an absolute given. No problem. And the 19th hole will be on me too.
Hey, I love it, Tim. Thanks so much, man. Take her easy, and we'll be looking for you on the 24th. Thanks, man.
Okay, fellas. Bye-bye.
Thank you.